Peace and blessings, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of Spotlight. I'm Ed Joenka, and I have some really important guests for you. Important information I have with me from the U.S. Virgin Islands, the Virgin Islands Police Department, Intelligence Officer Ray Martinez. He's here with us. Also, our own Acting Deputy Director from the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, Officer Acting Deputy Director Alvin James, and we're going to be talking about similarities between policing in the Virgin Islands, the BVI, and in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and a lot of discussion we're going to have for you about how the relationships in the various communities play out between police force and the community, among a lot of other things. So keep it locked right here to Spotlight. We're going to be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Clarence Thomas Limited, the BVI Tourist Board, and CCT Global Communications.
Welcome back to Spotlight. Let me get right to my guests. I want to welcome Intelligence Officer from the U.S. Virgin Islands Police Department, Brother Ray Martinez. Good to have you in Spotlight.
A pleasure to be here.
Good. And Brother Alvin James, Acting Deputy Commissioner in the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force. Good to see you.
Thank you for having us.
Spotlight. Yes, it seemed like a big thing happening today in the territory. We have Officer Martinez had to come up. And he comes back and forth. We looking to get Bilanga status, but you got Bilanga status.
The Bilanga status would help, so I don't have to go through the long visitors line. So it's not a problem.
It's not a problem.
I accept it.
That's cool. So you come back and forth.
Yes.
And you're here today. Any special occasion?
Actually, I was invited by the police force to present some, to speak to the membership, to the officers, and about motivation and motivating factors with policing. Additionally, I also presented some thoughts regarding the fact that the challenges with what you face here in the British Virgin Islands in policing are pretty much similar to those that we face in the U.S. Virgin Islands and even throughout the United States and throughout the world, as a matter of fact.
The issues, the social issues are the same?
The social issues are very similar. Mm-hmm. The challenges to policing are very, very similar. And at the end of the day, in the simplest of terms, the fact of the matter is that our society is changing on a whole, and the mindset of society, especially with the younger generation, is changing on a whole. And now what's happening is we in policing have to adapt to those changes and to make changes to our policies and our procedures, our programs, in order to meet the mandates, of protecting and solving the citizenry.
Okay. As an intelligence officer, Director of Intelligence in the U.S. VA Police Department, what's your role?
Well, I administrate the intelligence unit. That unit is tasked with the responsibility of collecting, analyzing, and disseminating intelligence information to the department, right from our patrol units right on up to our investigation units. Mm-hmm. Additionally, a lot of the information that we are able to collect and analyze also is passed on to our federal partners, the DEA, the FBI, Customs and Homeland Security. And a great part of that information, because of the geography, the demographics of where we are in the Caribbean, is passed on right here to our partners here in the BVI. Especially in light of the fact that so many of our citizens traverse back and forth to the various islands.
Okay. And how if I want to bring you in there, Deputy Commissioner, how close is that relationship that Officer Martinez is talking about?
As you would be
I mean,
aware,
you could call on the phone and get information.
The U.S. Virgin Islands is our closest neighbor, and we've built an extremely good relationship and partnership. As Mr. Martinez said, criminals traverse from the BVI to the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the way to solve our crimes and some of our issues is to share intelligence, information as much as possible. We have frequent meetings. We go over, they come over, we share whatever intelligence information we have. The U.S. Virgin Islands can pick up the phone and say, we had a situation last night, and our information is the subjects we're looking for in the BVI, it's so-and-so. And of course, we will act on that. And it's vice versa, we do the same thing. Excellent working relationship.
Because I've heard on the news a few times where persons committing crimes in the BVI have been apprehended in the USVI and vice versa. So you have to go further afield if you want to try to escape.
Yes.
That's good. What are some of the motivational factors that were talked about today in your presentation to the force, the BVI force?
Well, in short, the most unique but yet the most important factor is the fact that you and I can sit and we can dialogue all day long. But at the end of the day, while I may be attempting to motivate you to do something, at the end of the day, it's really up to you. The decision and that motivation comes from you. You have to accept what's going on. You have to accept the dynamics of what's around you and be able to motivate yourself before I can come in and project upon you the need for motivation. So that was the primary message this morning to the officers and the supervisors that were there as well, was that, you know what, at the end of the day, you're responsible for motivating yourself. That responsibility falls on three segments. It falls on you as the police officer. It falls on the supervisors, especially those in middle management. And then, of course, it falls on a portion of it falls on the department also. But the greatest emphasis is on the officer themselves.
Okay. But, Deputy Commissioner James, I get the sense sometimes from some officers that there are morale issues in the force. And Officer Martinez is talking about motivating, and how does that play with the morale issues? How do you get to motivate someone in the force that is having some challenges with the force itself?
Well, there are various challenges within the organization. There are challenges regardless of which department you work in. Whether you are in the police department, whether you're in the immigration department, whether you're in the customs department, there are challenges. One of the important things we always say, it's about your values. When you join the organization, understanding that is an organization of public service. And the service is very important. The public is our customers, and we are about building public confidence. And regardless of what your challenge, we have open doors. That persons can come, speak to the commissioner, speak to myself, relate to their supervisors. We work as best as we could to improve working condition, to provide training, to give them the tools that are necessary to do the job. But it's something that is very important, is about their part that they have to play in terms of their own motivation to do the job. Come in every day, do the things that assist persons, assist the community, solve crime.
Well, Officer Martinez, I don't want to put Officer James on the spot, Deputy Commissioner James on the spot, but from your motivational perspective, I want to ask you the same question, because it seems to me that yes, I have a responsibility as a police officer, but there's got to be some relationship between the organization and myself that makes me want to be a part of that organization and makes me want to do the things that Officer James wants me to do.
Well, exactly. However, you have to strike a balance, and I think that I would hope that within my message this morning, that the officers understood that, and that's why I alluded to the fact that it's three parts. You've got to play your part as the officer. There must be buy-in on the officers' officers. There must be buy-in from the supervision, from the middle managers, okay, because they're the ones that are actually overseeing the daily operations. You know, we get lost many times in the, what gets lost in the phrase that individuals believe that it's the deputy commissioner, that it's a commissioner that really enacts what goes on in the police department. And my personal opinion is that it is not. It's the individual officers. It's those guys that are there on the forefront, the guys that are there carrying out the duties, these individuals that are seen on a daily basis by the public. Your rank and file, your patrol officers. So once you can strike a balance between understanding, you as the officer understanding that this is my role, the supervisor understanding I have got that role, and I also have the additional duty of motivating this officer by ensuring that I, one, lead by example, that I'm fair in dispensing discipline, that I'm fair in dispensing compliments to my officers. And then, of course, like I said, the third part is the department, from the commissioner's office, from the deputy commissioner's office, from your inspectors, putting it out there and understanding that the infrastructure must be in place. Okay, and once you strike a balance, or you come as close to striking a balance as possible, you will see that the without even attempting, the morale issues and the motivation will start to increase automatically.
One of the things that we trying to get officers to understand is that there are factors that you have control over in terms of morale, and there are factors that you don't have control over. So you've done an excellent piece of work regarding an investigation, and that person is arrested and charged and taken before the court. The matter is heard, but the jury did not bring that person guilty. Now, you don't have control over issues like those. Now, those are issues that affect morale, because officers feel, I've done an excellent job. You know, I've arrested the offender, and I've brought the offender before the court, but they did not get the result that they wanted. You don't have controls over that. We have controls over the work environment. So to ensure that the work environment is conducive, you know, for them to be able to be productive. And that responsibility we have as managers. So those things we have control over. We do everything that we can to ensure that the officers are given the necessary support and good working conditions.
All over the world, police have challenges with the community, it seems. You know, for some reason, I don't know how it got to the point where the community see the police, who is sworn to protect them, as the enemy somehow. I mean, you must see that in. I know I grew up in the projects in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Right, and we felt that.
Right.
And I'm sure in St. Thomas, you feel that in here in certain aspects of our community, you must feel that as well, Deputy Commissioner James. How does it come to that, and what is being done by the police force, both, and I think this is one of the similarities in policing both in US and BVI. How do you mitigate that challenge? What's going on in both forces to help to deal with the community relationship with the police?
Well, I think that at least, you know, on the US VI side, there are a number of programs that the VIPD has begun to engage in, or has been for several years now, been engaged in. You know, we started stuff such as after school programs through our crime fighting unit. We have our school security bureau. We, you know, who are engaged. They've got the marching band, stuff like that. So you've got to keep, young minds must be maintained active. Okay. The minute that you start to fall by the wayside, then comes the negativity. It starts small, and of course it can arise to, you know, to the big things such as committing crimes and stuff like that. And those are the things that we try to regulate. Those are the things that we try to decrease. Now, we must be honest with ourselves, and I think that's where we're going right now, because we're starting to understand, and the fact that society is changing. The things that our parents and our grandparents saw in the 1940s when they were growing up, or the 1930s when they were growing up, that were not accepted, started to be accepted in the 1960s and the 1970s. The things that our parents in the 1970s did not accept in the 1990s are now accepted, and we carry on through the years. What's happening now, I believe, is that as a result of this social change, we are becoming more accepting of certain types of violence. I mean, you look at the TV now. 20 years ago, there are violent acts on TV that would never have been shown. And even if they were shown, they'd be shown 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, at just about any time of the day, we're inundated with violent acts.
Got the violent acts in cartoons.
In cartoons. I have 2 young kids. I've got a 3 and a 5-year-old son. And some of the violence I see in cartoons with heads exploding and all kinds of stuff, and I'm like, wow, I didn't see those things. This is not the Super Friends and the Bugs Bunny that I saw when I looked at cartoons 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So, society is changing, and I think that it's quite apparent at this time that we're not going to see 180-degree reversal. So we have to adapt, and that's what we're doing now, is adapting to those changes. We're understanding that whether it's in the BVI, whether it's in the USVI, whether it's on the US mainland, we're understanding now that, guess what? Because we live in a more violent society, a society that's like more acceptable of violence. We now have to cater to that. We now have to try to evolve to the point where we stop the violence before it even begins. We try to curtail it, and those are the things that we're doing now with our social programs, such as our police pre-cadets and our after-school programs and stuff like that. And then we're just reaching out, one-on-one, and just getting out there on St. Thomas, even on St. Croix. You see your chiefs of police, your captains, your lieutenants, your commanders of zones and bureaus going out into the community one-on-one and meeting and greeting and getting into the neighborhoods and introducing themselves and just actively getting out there and being seen. And I think we're off to a good start. Yeah.
We had the Police Athletic League in Brooklyn.
Right.
I don't know if you.
We had such a force on St. Croix.
I played baseball.
Right.
With the PAL in the community center, and they had active sports programs and so on. And we're gonna get a count from what the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force is doing along those same lines. But we gotta take a break. Hold that for a minute or so, Deputy Commissioner. And we gotta take a break forward from our sponsors, and we're gonna come right back with more discussion right after these words.
Spotlight is brought to you by Tortola Concrete Limited, Clarence Thomas Limited, and H. Lavity Stout Community College.
Welcome back to Spotlight. If you just joined us, I'm Edgy Wenker, and I'm here with the Intelligence Director from the USVI Police Department, Officer Ray Martinez, and the Acting Deputy Commissioner from the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, Brother Alwyn James. And we're having an interesting discussion about similarities between policing in the USVI and the BVI, and some of the programs that coming on stream or is on stream to help to mitigate the better relationship between communities. We left off asking you, Brother James, about the relationship with the police and the BVI. I have to admit, I think there's some improvement that's being shown. I mean, you agree with me that y'all have really put your shoulders to the plow and making a serious attempt to build a better relationship.
Certainly, Mr. Smith, and we go directly to the Peelan principles. the police is the public, and the public is the police. It just means that as police officers, we have the privilege of enforcing the law, but when we take over that uniform, we are members of the public. And it's very important for officers to understand that. And it's also important for the public to understand that, because the public helps us to be successful. We've been doing a lot of work around improving our relationship, engagement with the public. We have our consultative groups established in the various communities that we keep regular meetings with. Look at the issues that are happening in the various communities, how we can work together at addressing some of those issues, improving the quality of life, in some of those neighborhoods. We're about to roll out a neighborhood program where we're gonna identify a number of communities throughout Tortola, where we're gonna have a neighborhood officer assigned to those communities. And their responsibility would be to engage with the public, the various business communities, the residents in those communities, addressing the various issues they can. All of them are not going to be police issues. It means that we are going to work in partnership with other agencies in terms of solving some of those issues. Some of the things we see that are important that we need to work on and work in partnership with other agencies within the community is that we need to see more programs in terms of diverting young persons from committing crime. So whether it's after school programs, whether it's sports, whether it's assisting children with their homework, let us look at those high-risk kids who has the tendency to get involved in trouble or to even reoffend, and let us assist them, have programs in place that can assist them so that they don't reoffend, that they don't get in trouble, that they don't succumb to peer pressure, that sort of thing. So we're doing a lot of work on those issues.
So you're developing those things?
We're developing those things.
As we speak. Okay. Now, a lot of our police, I think, and Officer Martinez will tell me about USVI, but I think a lot of our police strictly law enforcers. If you're breaking the law, they will try to enforce the law on the spot. I'm not sure, and I can't say yes or no to this, but I'm not sure that they take a more corrective approach. I don't even know if they have the training to say to a young kid, listen, son, listen, young brother, what you're doing, you need to calm down, it's not right. You could mess yourself up with this one little incident, or, you've got a couple of joints, marijuana, some marijuana, a little packet of a nickel bag or a dime bag of marijuana in your possession. You could go to jail for this, ruin your life, ruin your chances of having success, and I'm going to take it from you. And I don't want to, have to deal with this again. I'm knowing full well that these young brothers are not the pushers, really. That the drugs, they don't manufacture the drugs. They don't harvest the drugs. The drugs don't come through their planes and their boats. So they usually take the brunt of the law enforcement force when the real criminals are in their mansions and in their private jets. And I'm not sure that the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force understands that and help to try to do some corrective mitigation, instead of just arresting all like young men, taking up to the court and criminalizing them. How you address that? Well,
of course, as a law enforcement agency, our primary responsibility is enforcing the law. Certainly, we do encourage, in certain circumstances, that you can give people a break. So you can catch an offender with a small quantity of drugs. What we encourage is that, of course, you would bring the person to the station, you would relay it to your supervisor. Your supervisor can make that decision to give that person a break. We will give them a warning and that sort of thing. But we need to see some structured programs, because when you give that person a break, because then that person has a bigger issue, that person is a user, how do you assist that person? stop being a user, some rehabilitation programs. So certainly we wouldn't have objections where a young offender, for his first time, you certainly don't want to start him off with a record, but you must have those structured programs in place that can assist him or her, having given them a break and identify what their challenge is.
Does that mean that the police is trying to have a role or a relationship, or does the police have a relationship with social development, for example? Because you have agencies in the territory that help to mitigate some of those circumstances. Some of those same programs that you're talking about, they help to deal with some of those issues. And so what is the police relationship with other agencies in the territory?
We have an excellent relationship with the social development, but I think what is required is some national policies. Because when you put those national policies in place, there's necessary funding and programs that need to go at place. So you identify that particular child is a vulnerable child and a risk child. What's the reason why that person is a vulnerable at risk child? Are they having issues at home? Are they a single parent? Is that child going to school without breakfast? Is that child not having the necessary tools to go to school with? The police in itself don't necessarily have any programs in place to address that issue. But if we had a national policy and that policy is being funded, the programs are being funded, then you can address those issues quite easily.
Yeah. And of course, that leads me to the view that the upper echelons of the police force and say, the governor and the premier of the territory and the administrations, all administrations, seem to be falling behind in developing channels for young persons to be steered toward in order to help to reduce incidents of new crime developing and repeat offenders. Let me ask Officer Martinez, what's happening in the USVI regarding that stream, that policing aspect where the police say to a young person, or show some compassion towards a young person, say, listen, this behavior, it's unacceptable. I don't want to lock you up. I don't want to have you get a criminal record. Is there a stream that young person could be channeled into? Can you take a corrective measure as an officer? How is that situation handled? A situation similar to what I described to Deputy Commissioner James.
Well, my answer is similar to Deputy James's answer in that, first of all, we got to look at it from two aspects, and there is no one answer that is probably more viable or more correct than the other. The first answer is that the law is a law is a law. No matter how minute the infraction may be, if it is an infraction of the law, then the officer has the responsibility to carry out the mandates of the law and to effectuate the arrest, whether it is for a traffic violation, whether it is for a small bag of marijuana. So they have to, they've got to carry out their duties. They're mandated to carry out their duties. There's nothing in the law that says, well, you know what, because it is so small an infraction, you can go ahead and release them, not arrest them, and channel them in another direction. However, on the opposite end of the spectrum, an officer also has a tremendous amount of latitude in carrying out those very duties, that he has the opportunity to say, you know what, I'll go ahead and confiscate this marijuana cigarette, I'll destroy it, write a report on it, get with the supervisor, and go from there and release this person, counsel them, and and take a different approach as opposed to arresting the each minor offender, for lack of a better term. Are there other channels? Yes. There are programs in place. Yes, I know that in the VI, in the U.S. section, we've got our human services department, which are pretty much, I think, very close to your social services here, where we can channel individuals through our juvenile units, through even the juvenile courts where they don't get, if we're talking about juveniles now, who where they don't receive arrest. On the adult side, I do know that we also have a number of programs where they can individuals can be sent to, again, utilizing human services, utilizing the courts in order for them to receive treatment, whether it's for addiction or for whatever the cause is. So, but again, it's not as simple at times as it sounds, where you may think that, you know what, you just released, here it is that I've heard the argument hundreds of times. I've testified before our local legislature and had a legislator, a senator, tell me that they didn't approve of our recommendation for a gang law because we were only locking up the young males of the territory, and we weren't going after these drug dealers and these other individuals who are associated with huge white-collar crimes and stuff. And my answer to them was, again, I abide by the law. If it's in the law, I have to follow the law. If you want to change, then change it in the law. You know, recommend them, make those recommendations, have them go before the legislative body, and once they're approved, and you place them into the law, and you place the programs into the law, then we can follow them. Until then, I don't mean to sound callous, but until then, we have to effectuate the law as is.
Is there little you could do?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do the best you can.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, cool. Now there's, you know, that your intelligence gathering, your intelligence director. Now there's intelligence data that help to fight crime, but there's also intelligence data that's statistical.
Yes.
And that statistical data seems to me that could be used to help to shape public policy.
Yes.
What is the relationship with the police departments, yours and yours, Inspector James, Deputy Director, Deputy Commissioner James, with the various agencies, with Education Department, with the Premier's Office, the Minister of Finance, with the Social Development, with even the Ministry of Communication and Works for infrastructure, you know. What do we say? What do we say? We look and we see 46, 50 young people under 18 a day in the court system, going through the court system. We see crime increasing in certain areas. We see a lack of education, and the people that we arrest, we can tell their level of education. You know, what relationships are being formed with the whole authority structure, with the whole administrative structure of the territory, of the Virgin Islands and of the British Virgin Islands and the U.S. Virgin Islands, so that we could help to shape public policy using that data. Is there anything in place like that?
Certainly. Well, here in the BVI, we have the Justice Reform Committee, of course, where the Commissioner sits and would pass on all statistical data and information that we have. We also have National Security Council, which the Commissioner is also a part of National Security Council. We provide to the National Security Council on a weekly basis. First of all, we provide to them reports on the trends of crime in the territory. We also present to them on a monthly basis the trends and figures, statistical figures in terms of how many crimes being committed, the type of persons committing the crime, the number of persons arrested, that sort of thing. We feed all of that information into. We also provide statistical information to the Mr. Raymond's unit that collates information in the territory. So there are mechanisms in place to feed the decision makers with the various statistical data to form policy.
On our end, we have pretty much the same things in place. And ours, as far as the VIPD and as far as our statistical data, on the law enforcement side is concerned is actually, again, ours is twofold also. One, we have, with the PD, we have a planning and research department. And what happens is all of our crime data is transferred to them on a monthly basis. They make all of their correlations, they get all of this statistical information together, and then they actually funnel that information to the areas where it needs to go. As a matter of fact, some of our information goes as far as to the FBI, who also keep these, and input all of this information so that it's actually available on a national level. On a more local level, our information, once is collected, and this statistical information, for instance, if we're speaking specifically about a crime trend that we're seeing both on the U.S. side and on the British side, then the BVI side, we actually have the procedures in place where we actually funnel this information back and forth directly to each other. And on either side, we're able to utilize that information for crime fighting purposes that assist each other. And, and it's been wonderful thus far. We've been highly successful with it.
Okay. We're going to take a break for a word from our sponsors, and we're going to come back with more discussion right after this.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Clarence Thomas Limited, the BVI Tourist Board, and CCT Global Communications.
Welcome back to Spotlight. We've been having an excellent conversation with Intelligence Officer Martinez from the USVA Police Department and Acting Deputy Commissioner Alvin James from the RVA PF. And certainly we have a lot more to talk about, but I think we need to end it off with community relationship. The need for community support for the police department. How important is that desire on the part of the police? What does it mean to the police for the community to have support, and how can that support be engendered and made closer?
Well, again, community support is crucial. Okay? The onus for policing falls on the police department. But without the community support, without the community coming forward, we're going to fail. Okay? It's going to be more difficult. It's already difficult because nobody wants to talk right now. And let's just quickly put it this way. Once you have a community that opens its mouth, opens its eyes, reports crime, you have reductions in crime. You have swift arrests. You have good prosecutions. Even if we have a police officer on every corner, the criminal element is going to move to somewhere else where the officer is not. But who's in that spot where they went to? The citizens. So it falls back on them. And I think that if we can get that across to our community, the importance of them, that they play an integral role. They play a more important role than us, because we are nothing without them. And I think if we get them to understand that, the success rate is going to increase tenfold.
Is the public understanding their role in solving crime? As Mr. Martinez rightly said, 90% of the times, the police is not present when the crime is taking place. But there's always a member of the public who sees, hears, or knows something.
Know somebody who did the thing.
Know somebody who
was
did
there,
it.
or they heard, or a friend, or the family.
Yes.
Somebody knows.
Or they're a friend of the family.
Yeah.
The persons who commit crime in our community is in the minority. And if we want our community to stay clean, our community to be a place where we enjoy our lives and not being dominated by the criminal element, it means then that we'd understand the need to be supportive of our organization. As Mr. Martinez said, the swifter we are able to solve crime by the assistance of the public, the stronger the message will be go out to the criminal element. This sort of behavior is not accepted within our community. Our community don't appreciate. My mother is going to give me up if she needs to give me up because she stands by principle. This is wrong.
That's a
We
good,
wanna see
that's a
that
good
in
last
community.
word.
Yeah.
That's a good last
Yeah.
word. Intelligence Director, USVI Police Department, Ray Martinez. Thank you very much for coming
Thanks for having
to
me.
Spotlight. And Acting Deputy
No problem.
Commissioner Alvin James, good to see you, and thanks for being on Spotlight.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, Spotlight is seen here on JTV Channel 55, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. and we broadcast every Sunday afternoon at 2:30 p.m. You could also catch up on your Spotlight, the ones that you missed, on jtvlive.net. Thank you for watching. Thanks for your words of encouragement, your criticisms, and your suggestions. Continue to email me at jtvspotlight@yahoo.com. I'm Edjuenka, reminding you that when the spotlight is on, you see the facts. Peace and blessings.
Spotlight is brought to you by Tortola Concrete Limited, Clarence Thomas Limited, and H. Lavity Stout Community College.